Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Jim Kleiber Show. Today's Tuesday, December 8th, 2020. My hair is all over the place. My beard is full. Thinking about getting rid of it. I've talked about this for months now. But it's getting cold outside. Getting rid of a beard when it gets cold outside and maintaining a beard in the summer just doesn't make any sense. But perhaps I'll do it. I don't really know what to talk about today, but maybe we can talk about that. We can talk about our look and the impression that we give to others. I think I've mentioned this before, but I find it fascinating for men how if we grow our hair out or if we grow the beard out, it could really change our look. If I put glasses on and I have the hair and the beard, I look like a totally different person. And for us men, we don't often have access to makeup and other things like that. So this is our strategy for changing the look. Yes, we can change clothes and stuff, but hair and beard seem to be the way to go. How many people out there actually like changing their look? I know for me, like occasionally I like to experiment and play with something different because I just get bored of doing the same thing over and over and over again. How about you? Are you a person that's ever changed your hair color? Have you ever grown your hair out, or do you keep it normally like the same length? Do you always have the same style? Do you part it differently, or do you kind of keep it the same vibe? Do you wear the same clothes, or do you mix up the clothes a lot? Do you have different types of glasses that you wear? Oh man, we got another person saying that I look like Seth Rogen. Maybe I should just go on with this Seth Rogen thing. Oh man, we got so that's the funny thing, right? So talking about that, when I grow out my hair and I grow out my beard, people will say I look like a Seth Rogen. If I cut my hair short or if I cut my beard short, then people will say I look like somebody else. It's amazing how sometimes we don't even notice like the facial structure. What we see is the hair and the beard. I was watching this one show, I can't remember the name of it, but it was this idea of guessing who was a fake and who was lying. And there's one woman on the show who actually did disguises for the CIA. And she said one of the best ways to disguise yourself is actually to put on a hat or to put on a wig. I think she also said glasses. And those three things can really confuse people because we look very different. So yeah, I guess I look like a Seth Rogen right now. If it's multiple different people are saying it, then I guess it's true, right? Yeah, so just this idea of, changing up our look or trying to keep the same look. And it may not be look, for example, it may be different aspects of our identity and trying to maintain that aspect of our identity. I was reading about, as I'm trying to get rid of stuff in the house, I was reading about hoarding. And I don't think we're anywhere near that level, but just reading about the psychology behind it to learn about it and see what's going on. And I think all of us have a tendency to dabble in some things like this. And it was talking about how sometimes we will keep possessions because we have kind of this attachment to the identity that that possession represented for us. So, for example, what came up for me is holding on to sports equipment that I had as a kid. Like, for some reason, it's very hard for me to let go of the rollerblades that I had as a kid, or even the hockey equipment that I used when I was like 10, 15 years old. Less than 15. I was like 10, 12. To let go of that stuff, because I think there's a real strong part of me that wants to still be an athlete, to still have that as part of my identity, even though I haven't played sports actively in a long time. It reminds me of this guy, Derek Sivers, who, actually I should figure out how to pronounce his name because I've said this a few times, but who talks about identity, and he says, for something to be part of our identity, it should be something that we're currently doing, not something that we did. To maintain that aspect of identity, we should continue to do it. Otherwise, we don't earn it anymore. I think it's fascinating how sometimes, for me, example, I can focus on the past and say, oh, I was this athlete in high school. I played 4 sports in high school. I played varsity. I played more sports growing up. I played probably 6 or 7 different organized sports as a kid. And so I think it's easy for me to focus on that and say, oh yeah, I'm an athlete because I was an athlete. But what I like about what Derek Sivers says is if you want to maintain that, you have to keep doing it. So almost like an identity is something that can deteriorate or depreciate over time if we don't do some upkeep on it. And, tangent on that is, think about beards and think about hair. It requires, our look requires a certain maintenance and upkeep to maintain the same thing. If I want to maintain this beard, it requires trimming and combing and washing and styling and all these different things to maintain the current state. So I think it's really interesting looking at the things that we have and how they can remind us of previous identities that we've had. Me growing out my hair reminds me of when I grew out my hair before, and there's a part of me that wants to go back to that time where I had longer hair. So there's, I don't know, I think there's some stuff that goes along with that, just maintaining this idea of who we are, who we were, and trying to still be that person, even though we may not be. So, I don't know. What are you all thinking about today? What's on your mind? I think a part of me is, we have my friend Amalia. We are what we are because of what we do, and we do what we do because of who we are. I'll pop that up here. We are what we are because of what we do, and we do what we do because of who we are. Aha. So yeah, this idea that like our identity is formed by what we do, and then what we do is formed by our identity, and it's kind of this mutual relationship, mutually assuring relationship that builds on each other. Like so what things are you doing? What things are you doing now that are coming from your identity or who you are? Or who are you because of the things you do? So I met Amalia through training. And so because we've run training events, we've trained people in Germany, therefore we are trainers. This idea of, I really appreciate this, the combination of the verb of the thing we're doing and the kind of the adjective or noun of the thing that we are. So, oops, gotta update the day. So this idea of, I'll be really honest. I think I'm getting tired of some of this podcast stuff just by myself. I like having somebody on to talk to. So Amalia says writing, walking my dog, dancing, meditating. So those are the things that she's doing. So therefore, is she a writer? Is she a dog walker? Is she a dancer? Is she a meditator? How do those terms sit with you, Amalia, when I say it like that you're a writer, that you're a dog walker, that you're a dancer, that you're a meditator? I know for me, I can write a lot, or I'm speaking now, and I like speaking. But then for me to say that I'm a speaker, or I like doing a podcast, but for me to say that I am a podcaster, I think there's something that makes me feel really uncomfortable in those statements. I don't know why. I think it's I can measure it up to my expectation of what a podcaster or what a speaker should be. So, but maybe other people are totally fine with it. How do those identities sit with you? Like I said, I think part of me, when I don't have the monologues to go off of the chaos that's happening in politics here in the U.S., I think I can get a little antsy on these calls when I'm not hitting somebody. The writing hits her the hardest. So is it the writing itself or the term you are a writer? What hits you the hardest, and why does it hit you hard? Or how does it hit you hard? the mismatch between spoken and written text. So I can speak much faster than the people who are commenting, and therefore I somehow have to fill the gap while I wait for the response. Maybe I should just invite people on the show. It'd be a lot easier. La 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 la. Yeah, I'm not really sure what to say. I think sometimes this happens to us where we get into a situation where we think we're supposed to speak and supposed to say stuff, but we don't have the inspiration flowing through, and we force ourselves to do things. Aha, good, Amalia responded. It's harder to accept it because of the preconceived idea about being a writer. Exactly. Aha. So, yeah, when I think about writing, oh yeah, I can write totally fine. Oh, but when I think about being a writer, oh, no. A writer is John Steinbeck. A writer is William Shakespeare. A writer is somebody who is much more talented than I am. I don't fit into that category. It's that, yeah, it's, she says we have a huge gap. It's this idea of, I can't remember who said it, but they were saying that one of the hardest parts about wanting to be really good at something is that our taste gets better faster than our talent. So we can recognize something that's really good, but then we recognize that we can't yet make that very good thing. So we can scrutinize our work intensely because we're like, oh, this is not nearly as good as it should be. And I think that can really hit us pretty hard. Inviting people on the show is definitely a good idea. Amalia, would you like to join the show one day? Or now? So, yeah, I think there's this huge perception gap. And, I tried to talk about this with a friend the other day and said, oh, don't compare yourself to others. And I thought, it's really hard to stop comparing myself to others. And one thing I want to practice is that when I think about being a writer, for example, to compare myself to the John Steinbecks and to the Shakespeares and the famous writers throughout history. I'm going to compare myself to them, and I still want to. I also want to remind myself to compare myself to the other writers, the ones who are less talented than I am. Because I think a lot of times I have a tendency to only compare up. Like, oh my gosh, I'm not nearly as good at this thing as that person is. Oh, I need to get better. I need to get better. I need to get better. And I think that's fine. I think it's helpful to compare up, actually, so that we can learn how to improve our skills and have goals that we're aiming for. But I think we also can be helped by comparing down to recognize how far we've made it. It's like climbing a mountain and only looking up to the top of the mountain and not looking down and seeing how far we've come. Sometimes we've come a very long way up that mountain and we don't realize it because we're so focused on the goal that we don't look back to see how far we've come, or to see all the people who aren't climbing the mountain, see all the people standing on the ground who are looking up going, wow, look at that guy climb. That's incredible. I can't believe he's climbing. Wow, I don't have the courage nor the talent to do that. That's incredible. So I think I know I can get caught very often in the comparing up game and not the comparing and forgetting about comparing down. I can sit here at home and go, I haven't done anything this whole pandemic. What's wrong with me? As I'm recording the 83rd episode of this podcast. Right? Speaking with wild, crazy hair for like improvisationally for like 30 minutes straight. I don't know. Amalia, do you have this problem or this challenge as well where you often compare up to people who do something better than you do and maybe forget to compare down to the people who you do it better than? Or anyone else who's listening on the show right now? If you're listening, please post a comment either on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, and I should be able to see it show up here and respond to it. maybe I talked about this on the show before, but I really like the story. It's that idea that I was taking a salsa class in Miami. And I lived in Miami after I lived in Costa Rica, and I first started salsa dancing in Costa Rica. And so I lived in Miami. I turned 21 living on South Beach. It was quite a heck of a summer. And I was working at Caterpillar. I was working in the technical marketing department of Caterpillar, just out near the airport. And on the way back from the airport, there was a salsa dance studio that would teach classes a couple days a week. And I took it at least 3 days a week. And it was salsa rueda. So salsa where you dance in a circle, salsa casino, different names, kind of the Cuban style. And when I was taking the class, I wanted to take the more advanced class because I wanted to learn faster. And, I had just started. I wasn't, a professional in dancing at all. And I took the more advanced class, and I was really pushing myself. And then there was one day, there was this one kid in class, and he must have been like 15, 16. But he was good. He was so good. And I'm like, how does this kid know how to dance so well? This is not fair. Like, man, maybe I'm really just not that good at this thing. I just need to try harder. I'm not practicing enough at home, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then it was a couple days or weeks later, and we were all dancing. At some point, he says, oh, yeah, my mom and dad are champion salsa dancers. And I go, oh, this kid has been dancing salsa since he was like 2. Or if he hasn't been dancing it, maybe he was even dancing when he was in the womb because his mom was dancing to salsa. So he's been hearing and dancing to salsa for most of his life. Oh, and I wasn't comparing myself to the people who didn't dance as well as me. I just compare it up. And I know I can do this a lot when it comes to dancing. I'll go into a place and I'll find the best dancers in the spot and go, oh man, they're really good. Oh, look at the way that, I go to an African club here in the States. Oh, look at the way that Nigerian guy dances, or that Congolese guy. They can dance. And then I go, oh, I can't dance that well. But I forget about, the 80% of the people who are just sitting there taking a drink because they're either ashamed to dance, again, don't have the courage, they're afraid, or 2, if they did dance, they don't dance that well. They don't have the rhythm, or they don't have they haven't practiced that much. And so it's so easy for me to forget to do that comparing down. And I wonder if it's happening for other people. So especially in a time like this, I think that's a really important thing to remember. People will say over and over, don't compare yourself to others. I think that is impossible. I think it's such a natural thing for us to do. It's almost like a reflex for us to immediately compare ourselves to others. I think maybe a stronger tactic or a more natural response would be to continue to compare ourselves to others, but compare ourselves to all the others. Not just the others who we think are better than us in some certain thing. I think, when I remember to do that, I feel so much more relaxed because then I place myself in the right spot. I am more honest with it, right? Because yes, I'm not nearly as good at dancing as that one person, but I'm also much better at dancing than those people. Right? And it's not saying that somebody is better or worse in terms of worth, but in terms of skill that I'm talking about mostly. But even when we look at things like our physical appearance or our attractiveness or our productivity or efficiency or our kindness or our whatever, I think we can look at these traits and we can look at these abilities and often compare ourselves to the ones who are much more capable of it than we are, instead of also comparing it to the people who aren't. I think it's happened a lot during this time when we compare ourselves. And I think like a productivity thing. I don't know about for others, but I know for me, I have felt quite guilty that I haven't been productive enough while being at home during this pandemic. And I remember one time talking to somebody. I said, I just did a podcast episode today, and I had a conversation with some friends, and I did a Zoom call, and then I was doing some research on psychology of attachment, whatever, something like this. And, I really didn't do that much. I woke up late, and I and then she says, wow, you did a lot. I said, what do you mean? She says, I just stayed in bed all day and watched Netflix. Oh, oh, okay. So again, it's relative. I'm looking at the people who've created the COVID-19 dashboards and who have quickly manifested the ability to ship PPE, personal protective equipment all across the country, who are running and gunning. They come up with a new virtual platform like Clubhouse or Gather or some of these things, and they're moving fast and making things happen. And I often compare to those people and to those actions, and not to the actions of the people who are doing much less. So, and I think it can help us in a time like this, because not even, yes, we can make those comparisons, but other people can make those comparisons for us and force us into certain ways. Like, oh, you're being so lazy. Look at how much this other person has got done. And when other people make those comparisons for us, we can easily forget to make the two-sided comparison. And I find comparing both ways can really help. And perhaps that's the idea of, I think for a lot of things, I think this can resolve a lot of things. Oh, I don't have enough money. But I also have a lot more money than a lot of people. So comparing both ways. I feel so jealous that person has the house and, and the wife and the kids maybe. And I also, they have their life more established than I do. But then if I look at some other people who have their life even less established than I do, or, it's just this idea of not getting stuck comparing in one direction. I don't know if that makes any sense. And I know I say that statement a lot because I've tried to open up the opportunity for the other person to tell me it doesn't make any sense. I'm still confused. Perfect. I also say I don't know if it makes any sense because it's true. I don't really know if this resonates with you. I don't know if it seems coherent or if it lands. And I want you to know that I don't know. Man. Hey, speaking into a camera for 30 minutes straight without a script, without kind of a planned agenda can be troublesome. Look at me using an adjective to describe how I'm feeling. It can make me feel exhausted. It can make me feel lost, confused, uncertain if people appreciate what I'm saying. It can make me feel quite insecure in many ways. If I think about how some of the late night talk shows started when the pandemic first happened, I think they faced a very similar dilemma where they were just speaking into a camera and they didn't know if any of the jokes landed. They didn't know if any of the points hit home. They have no idea. There's like no feedback. I have a little bit of feedback when somebody joins in and comments, but otherwise it's just, yeah. And so unless I have something very, very fervent on my mind, unless I have something very strongly on my mind, which typically comes from politics and what was happening with the election, kind of that crescendo, then it's hard to keep speaking into the camera. Because I think a lot of times when we speak, we are looking for the reaction from people. Anyways, I've talked about a few different topics today. It's been starting out with the identity, the hair and the beard, and how we can change our look, and how sometimes we may hold on to our look and our identity from the past. And then we talked, my friend Amalia joined a little bit, and we talked about how what we do creates who we are, and who we are creates what we do, and how often that we can feel comfortable doing the thing or with the verb of like writing or walking a dog or training or dancing. But when we take those verbs and turn them into nouns and turns in, adjectives or identities, it can be really hard for us to grasp at that, because we compare ourselves to all the other dancers or all the other writers. Actually, no, we typically compare ourselves to the better dancers or the better writers, and we forget to compare down to the other, to all the dancers or all the writers, to have a more balanced perspective of where we are in the scale of skills. And then I ended talking about how I want to have more people on the show, and I mentioned this before, and I think part of me just doesn't like the organization aspect of trying to get people on the show. Seems like a lot more hassle than me just coming down and speaking on the camera. But yeah, I don't know. I hope this was helpful for you or somehow entertaining, or who knows. Please tell me how the episodes are going for you. I have no idea. I really have no idea. I don't know who watches. I don't know who listens. It's broadcasting into a void without having an audience. Maybe I should get people to just sit down here with me like Colbert seems to do. But I don't know. Anyways, y'all, I hope you have a good and bad Tuesday. Because if you're just having a good Tuesday, then you're probably overlooking the bad. And if you're just having a bad Tuesday, then you're probably overlooking the good. Life is both, and let's feel it all. So anyways, take care, y'all.